Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Garden State HSWrestling.com podcast. Near fall back points, call it whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. Horrible joke. We have a really great show coming up. We're going to be interviewing a wrestler that I had the pleasure of covering for nearly 11 years. 11 years. Oh, I'm getting old and the beard's not just showing it. Jan Rosenberg, formerly of Morris Knolls, formerly of Rutgers & Co., now lives out in Iowa, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his career, some of his teammates, talk some memories about Luke Homeyer, a wrestler who we've mentioned in the podcast, passed away while doing trooper training recently, was his teammate, and he's going to talk a little bit about him. And it's going to be just a great time talking to Jan and catching up on everything. Little clarity when it comes to the upcoming season. I know a lot of people have been wondering what's going on. We still are on a track to start March 1st. That's going to not be an issue, it looks like. We'll see how everything goes, but the issue will be starting March 1st. Then the season will officially kick off a couple weeks later after practices. Not so sure about a state tournament yet. Not so sure about a team tournament. I'm sure something will happen, but we don't know exactly what yet. The one thing I do know we have confirmed, I talked to a few coaches on how the schedule is going to get broken down. I spoke to a few coaches in the NJAC, and the way it's going to work is your division matches will be first. So, for example, Del Barton will wrestle Pope John and Mendon and such like that before any other matches take place. They want to make sure that the division matches are handled so there could be championships handled. Then you can schedule matches within the division or within the conference against other teams. There still doesn't seem to be a consensus on if there's going to be interstate wrestling, which realistically for our coverage area, it only affects a few teams. I know sometimes some of the Hunterdon County teams will wrestle, maybe a Pennsylvania team. Peaburg sometimes goes out and wrestles Easton and some other teams in Pennsylvania. High Point does a little bit of tournaments. I know they went to Wisconsin. I don't think they did that last year, but they'll wrestle some teams out of state. And Hanover Park was in a couple tournaments, but there's not a ton of teams that really go out of state. So that really doesn't affect anything with what we're doing. But we do have a wrestling season as far as right now. As long as everybody does what's going on and they don't yank from us, I think we should get a quality year from everybody. I think we should get a quality season. I'm hoping we have some sort of state tournament. I'm hearing there's too much interest in them not to have it. And it might not be the way people think. It might be different in certain aspects and how it's done and how it's taken care of. But there is optimism, and it's very good being here 2 months away, a little under, which essentially, looking at the date, we would have been gearing up for the Hunterdon and Warren Sussex tournament this weekend if the original calendar had stuck according to my timeline and my calculations. But enough about the impending season. We're going to talk real quick with a guy who, like I said, I'm super impressed with, not only as a wrestler, but as a person and what he's done with his life. Let's go to our interview with Jan Rosenberg. I'm here with somebody I've had the pleasure of covering since, I'm pretty sure, freshman year of high school. Watched you go off to college, and now you're a man on your own. I mean, doing triathlons and doing everything else. Jan Rosenberg from Morris Knolls. How you doing, Jan?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, we've been working with each other since 2009 probably. So
I think let me see if I can run down your resume correctly. 2-time region champion, 2-time state medalist at third as your junior and senior year at 106. Made the semis both years.
Yep.
You wound up going to, I knew you went somewhere else, but then you wound up in Co. Where did you go right after high school?
I started at Rutgers University.
Well, you went to Rutgers for a year. You went out to Co. Wound up being a All-American out there.
Yep.
Graduated, helped coach the team for a little bit, as assistant in the area. And I know you were with another college you were with too as well.
Yep. So I started off at Cornell College, which is a school about 25 minutes from Co. And then I am now pretty much like a part-time volunteer assistant at Co. So
out in Iowa. I don't want people to think you're up the road at Cornell doing some stuff. You're out in Iowa, Cornell.
Correct. Yeah.
And you want to be green, and you're working as a nurse now, which I know you wanted to do for a while. Just tell us a little bit about your career and what got you involved with the sport of wrestling and how it's helped you.
Oh yeah. So I started off wrestling around 8 years old. My dad got me into it. Some of our friends in the area, their kids wrestled. It's actually a funny story though. My mom did not want us to wrestle at all. So he told my mom for a while we were going to basketball practice. He would have me change my shoes once we got to practice. He took me to some tournaments, but told me to keep it on the down low for my mom. But one day I showed her a medal. I was like, "Oh, look, we got a medal today." And she flipped the back. She's like, "This isn't basketball." And then she knew that we've been wrestling. So I started at 8, just kind of doing the junior Eagles. Back then it was Denville PAL, and then we switched to the Morris Knolls Junior Eagles. And I wrestled all the way through, like you said, high school, college, and now just kind of volunteering and helping out coaching. So I think wrestling, though, is the greatest thing that I've ever been a part of. It's taught me so much. It's made me who I am. I go to work every day with the same mindset that I've had as a wrestler. I try to work extremely hard, have a really hard work ethic. I always am trying to be a good team player and help my pod mates and other nurses in the pod. But it's just the way I think. I always, whether it's nursing or triathlons or marathons, whatever I'm doing now, I try to put my full effort into it every single day. And I try to put myself into that very uncomfortable situation that other people don't know how to put themselves. So a lot of things that stress people out, I'm just used to it. I feel like I've put myself into what I call the dark place so long training that it doesn't bother me in hard training sessions or really tough days at work. It just feels like another work day that I put myself through every day in college or even high school. So
that seems to be the mindset of a lot of wrestlers, especially wrestlers who, on your level where you were at. I mean, the one has to. I'm not sure if you still are wins leader at Morris Knolls. I'm
I
pretty
think
sure you.
someone beat me, which is, I think it was one of the Drew Jack twins.
I knew you were up there.
Yeah.
I remember you were there, and then you had it for a little bit. It might have been Luke, I think, because I think Dean might got hurt. But it's always that mindset where you see people and they can run in and do stuff and just handle it. And it always seems to trace back to wrestling. And talking about some of those Morris Knolls teams, a couple of your teammates, have been all around. Talk about Jermaine Illumina. We're talking about a kid who is a big bear who's now starting offensive tackle for the Patriots. Did you see him doing anything like that, or was it kind of out of the blue, or did you just know he'd be really a kid like that?
So I honestly think, and Jermaine maybe in high school didn't have the most success in football. He was always a kid that would say, "I'm going to make it in the NFL, or I'm going to play big power conference football." And people were like, "Oh, you're not going to do that." And he was like, "No, I'm going to do it." I think Coach Rizzo in Finland might have had a nice impact on him, where they brought in DJ Russo and they got him pretty fit to be ready to wrestle on a high level. And then he went to play JUCO college football at Lackawanna, and he was an animal. And after that, I think people started to believe that once he started to learn how to use his body, and the coaches there taught him correct technique of how to be a college football player, I mean, the sky was the limit for him. I knew it. I mean, his work ethic was pretty great. I mean, he came into high school wrestling with 0 wrestling experience, and I mean, he was pretty athletic, but I mean, he worked himself into a kid that could be pretty successful. So I wasn't shocked. I know a lot of people were surprised, but I wasn't surprised to see him take off.
That run he went on his senior year to the state final, a lot of people, I just remember we were there talking, and people kept saying, "Oh, what about this kid?" Because if you remember, heavyweight was really open in that year, and everybody's like, "What about this kid? What about this kid?" I said, "What about Illuminar? Oh, he's good, but when he faces those really good kids," and I'm like, as he kept advancing, I'm like, "He's beating good kids. He's beating good kids." Yeah. And it was just like, it's just one of those. He came out of nowhere, and it really, and it's funny. He's a really big kid, but a really nice, soft-spoken kid. Always super polite. And I know he wound up coming over. I think it was his freshman year or his 8th grade year from England. His family was originally from.
Yeah, so he came over, I believe, 8th grade year, but he didn't really start wrestling until, I mean, freshman year he was there, but I mean, he just was there. Sophomore year he was wrestling, but like junior, senior year he started taking it serious. And he never played he didn't even play football until he got to the United States either. Mm-hmm. People don't even realize that a lot of them. He never even knew what American football was until he went to Wembley Stadium and saw a NFL game over in England.
Wasn't the Giants and Dolphins game the very first one, I think it was?
Exactly, yeah. So then after that, when he came over, he's like, "I want to play this football game and see what it's all about." And I mean, his frame, he's over 6 foot tall, big dude, athletic. So it was just a matter of time for someone to teach him how to do the technique correctly. And he was athletic, hardworking guy. So
I was rooting for him in the draft too when I was watching. I'm like, come on, New York, you're on. Come on, bring the
yeah,
kid home. It'd be a great story. Ravens got him, but we'll deal with that. Another one of your teammates, on a different note, I know we had talked a little bit about it. I got the pleasure of covering Luke, but I didn't get a chance to be with him every day in the room. And, for us to tragically have lost him, talk a little bit about, everybody hears about Luke and what he did. Talk about Luke as the teammate and friend.
man, I mean, I was heartbroken when I heard what happened with Luke. He was one of those guys, like I've been in Iowa for a long time, but regardless, anytime I went home, and I saw him, whether it was at a restaurant or if it was the night before Thanksgiving, it was always like time had never had passed. And he was always one to come seek me out and find me. He was a guy that no matter what, he would be there for you. He might not have been the most successful wrestler. He might not have been a state champ. He was a very vocal leader. He led by action, always willing to be there for his teammates. He was hardworking. I can't say enough good things about him. I think there's many times where like we would be down, like practice would be hard or the season wouldn't be going the way we want, and he would kind of rally everyone back together. He had that distinctive like leader personality without even needing to do much. You just look at the kid, you watch him work out hard or just the way he speaks. And I mean, he was never a guy that what he said to you was always true. He would never sugarcoat things. And I think that's what made him a natural born leader to be a police officer. For him to have his life tragically ended like that just hurt me. Just knowing that like he was such a good guy. Everybody in the entire town of Rockaway, Denville, I don't think anybody can say a lot of negative things about him. He was always a positive guy, big smile all the time. And he was good with kids, good with parents. Like he was just a good teammate to have over around. Me and him got really close in high school too. We started training together at Mr. Kennedy's. We
Pinnacle.
all, yeah, we started
Pinnacle.
taking a lot of our teammates there, but, and we started hanging out a lot outside of wrestling. And I mean, he was just a great guy. So now for like my Ironman stuff, we're going to get a nice patch for memorial for him on the side of my bike jersey and stuff like that. And just kind of not let his name get forgotten. It's easy to let time pass, but we're not going to forget about him. We're going to continue to utilize the things that Lucas would have brought in his everyday life to my life. And anytime now I'm thinking about, man, training's hard, I just think about like some of my friends like Lucas. And I had another friend named Kenny Anderson who passed away. He was a 3-time national champ. And I just think about what those guys would want me to do. And I continue to just push through my days and think about them. So
Luke, in the short time I knew Luke, because obviously, I was working for the Ledger and they would send us to periodic stuff, but that's great. And I remember he had finished third one year, fifth another, and I got a chance to chat with him a little bit. And he was just one of those nice kids. And every team should have one of those kids where they may not be the one who, come Atlantic City or wherever we have states this year, is there on the podium, but they're the one that puts the hard work, gets those hard points, and could swing a match, because everybody's going to expect a 6 out of you or a 6 out of Michael Burns or the Drugax or whoever. But if he goes out there and battles a really good kid and winds up swinging, that's a 9-point swing either way. That's the difference in a win and loss right there. And he was always one of those really, great kids. And I felt really bad for his parents. And, when they didn't announce who it was, but then when I saw it was Luke Holmeyer, I was like, and it was I know exactly what you're talking about. He will be missed.
Yeah, he will absolutely be missed. I mean, I am so blessed though to hear that the Morris Knolls wrestling program is going to dedicate that wrestling room to him.
Yes.
So many people like we think is we name stuff after like the best wrestlers, the best awards, like the Dave Schultz Award or the Dan Hodge Award, named after some really classic wrestlers. But for them to name the wrestling room after him, there's not a better person. I don't think wins and losses should matter to that kind of thing. I think kids, like we lose vision of that, like when I was in high school, we care about win records, we care about this, but I know that looking back on it, and I think a lot of us now looking back on what the stuff Rizzo taught us, they're all life lessons. Nobody cares at the end of the day how many wins and losses you've had when you've been at a wrestling as long as I have. It's about what kind of person you are, what people like, what can you do for your community? Like, what can you do to better yourself? And there's not a better kid to dedicate a room after than Lucas. He did so much stuff. I mean, would have been a state trooper. He was an Eagle Scout. The kid always did community service, gave back. He was a good role model. Like, that's who you should name your program after. And I lost for words when I heard they were going to do that for him. So.
And that's talking about Coach Rizzo. That's one of those things. He was always one of those coaches that did that, because a lot of coaches sometimes get caught up in the, oh, we're going to win now. How's it going to look? It's not going to matter in 3-4 years when a lot of kids don't go on to wrestling college. A lot
Exactly.
Of kids, yes, they do. And then do you want them to be good kids, or you want to see the same kids 20 years sitting around the mat because that's all they can do is they learned how to wrestle and they're just stuck in that mode? And I'll give you 100% credit with Coach Rizzo too. He was always like that. He was always teaching you guys the other lessons. And shout out to Coach Rizzo, but definitely Morris Knolls, like you were saying. When I heard that's a great thing, and it's not to be taken lightly. If that showed, a lot of people would be like, "What?" And then when if they didn't know in the room, but for a school to dedicate their room after somebody shows just how much of an impact he had on your program.
Absolutely. I mean, like we were just saying, it's easy just to be like, oh well, Danny Herr and Jan Rosenberg got 130 wins. Like, let's just it's easy to dedicate your room after someone like that. But I think kids now can look up at the room and a little bit of piece of him will be there every day. It makes it a little more special to be in the room. Like, I don't know. I think it's just great for our community. Hopefully kids can take that and honor that when they go in the room and make it a little more special, make it a little more important every day. So
now you had a great career in college. You wind up going out being an All-American, but then it's almost strange in a way. You transition to nursing, not in a bad way, but you wouldn't think somebody who was a wrestler. To me, it's almost like, I guess maybe I'm coming from the Oaks mindset. It doesn't seem like the type. But then you just explained before, what got you into nursing, and just kind of what made you love it, made you want to make a career.
Yeah, so my mom's a nurse, and I mean, my dad. I mean, everybody knows my dad. He's a hardworking guy. He's always there. He was always working with youth programs, but people don't know my mom that much. My mom is a grinder. She is a hard worker. I mean, I get my work ethic from him, but my mom is a grinder. She would work ICU overnights, 3 shifts in a row. She worked as an operating room nurse for 30 years, 5 days in, 5 days out, doing long cases, and never complained. She'd come home, she'd still do everything else that we would need. And I think I developed some work ethic from her. But when I transitioned from Rutgers, I was in a little bit of like a dark place. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I didn't even know what the next step was. I didn't even know if I wanted to wrestle per se, My mom said, why don't you take a intro to nursing class there? It's Coe College has what is called a one-on-one preceptorship program, which is very rare for nursing programs. What that means is, as a nursing student, you are one-on-one with a nurse during your clinical hours. So you get to take all of their patients and learn. Normally clinicals are like, one nurse will have like 3 or 4 different students, and each student nurse gets a nurse or one patient. Mm-hmm. So to be able to like go into a clinical setting, like at the University of Iowa or some of the smaller hospitals around here, and actually have like a full patient load as a clinical opportunity, that is really, really important, and it helps the development. But I did a CNA class, and I was helping work with some of the like long-term care facility. And, I just kind of fell in love with helping people, and more about like learning stuff about people. I didn't realize how much you can learn from some of these people just by talking to them. Like, it's as much as I was learning about healthcare and learning how to take care of people, I was learning life lessons and stuff just from talking to some of these patients and residents. Like, it's easy to think, oh, like these people are like 90 years old, but some of these people were engineers, doctors, war veterans. Like, you can learn so much about life just if you sit there and give them 5 minutes of your time and listen to what they have to say. So once I did that, I kind of fell in love with that. But at Coe, they only take 20 students in their nursing program every year. And that's when I really got into a competitive edge, where I sat in a room with like 100 kids that wanted to be nurses, and they went around the room, like, introduce yourself. I was like, oh, I'm a college wrestler here at Coe. I don't even know if I want to be a nurse. And you could hear like little whispers around, like, oh, that kid won't make it. We don't have to worry about him. And when I started hearing that, I'm like, now I'm really going to, like, you brought the competitiveness out of me, where I'm going to try to get into this program, whether I want to do it or not.
Build bulletin board material. They pissed you off. Don't do that.
Luckily, though, I mean, once I got in the program, I fell in love with emergency medicine, and I've stuck with it since. There's just something about emergency medicine that brings you into that same wrestling mindset that I love and I can't escape. Whether I'm competing or tying my shoes up or putting on my mask and face shield, it feels almost the same every day as it would be for getting ready for competition. So,
hey, you said mask and face shield, I kind of will lead you to my next question. You being a medical professional, there's always a lot of debates online. Is COVID real? Is it fake? You're in the front line. You're a wrestler. Please let everybody know your experiences with it and just kind of what it is and what people should do. Because I think there's a lot of people who you're hearing a bunch of voices, they don't know what to do. And just kind of as a medical professional.
I mean, I'm not, my word is obviously as good as everyone else's. People are going to take it how they want, but I've seen some pretty sad cases with COVID in the hospital where patients are struggling. Like they cannot get their oxygens up. Some of these people need to be on ventilators. And I think what's more scary is it's the post-COVID. It's not like having the virus is easy for some of these people with chronic diseases. Like they get through the initial part of the virus, but now the aftermath of the 6 months from now of what's happening. And I mean, I'm going to share personally, I haven't told too many people, but my dad had COVID in March. Super healthy guy, still hits the gym, never had any problems, and now was having a little bit of cardiac arrhythmias post-COVID, where they had to put him on special medications and do heart ablation surgery to help reverse the rhythm. And every doctor that he talked to has pretty much related it to COVID. So, I mean, that woke my eyes up enough. And I mean, I've seen it frontline of how sick some of these people are coming in and how full the hospitals get. And what's unfortunate about that is it puts some of those people that need elective surgeries and need beds behind because you need to take care of these frontline people. I think everyone should just wear a mask. Everyone should just follow the social distancing, whether you believe it or not, because the quicker we all do that, the quicker we can hopefully get back to a normalized life again. And, you know, maybe the survival rate is pretty high for COVID, but if you are one of those people that happen to have one of those more fatal cases or know a family member, it can be detrimental to you. So, you know, just protect yourself because you can protect your family. Then at least you know in the back of your mind you've done everything you can to protect your family and the ones that you love the most. So
we lost my cousin who was the chief of police in Madison, Vincent Cherico. He passed away after an 8-month battle. He had that. I mean, so you don't want to wish that anybody, and you think of some of these people, and it's like, you know, it's not a problem. I understand people are going to get upset about it. Wear a mask, social distance for a little bit, you know.
I mean, it sucks. It sucks for everybody, you know. It stinks for healthcare workers. It stinks for people that own small businesses. It stinks for everyone. This whole time it stinks for college athletes. It stinks for the entire world. So maybe if, you know, whether we believe it or not, we should try to band together and just combat this thing. You know, I coach college wrestling.
High school athletes, think about it now. We'd be in the middle of the season. That's not until March.
Yeah, and I mean, it hurts for me as a college coach last year. I mean, we got guys ranked number 1, number 2 in the country, and their tournaments canceled. You know, some of those guys came back for a 5th year. Imagine going to a Division III school, paying extra money to come back to get your athletics just to have it taken, and you're not getting that money back. So, you know, it stings for a lot of people, and we're gonna have to get through it all together.
So follow up on a brighter note. Last question: what's next for you? Because I'm friends with you on social media. Full disclosure. So I always see when you're doing the training and the stuff like that. What's next for you? And is Iowa a permanent place for you, or is it?
I'll tell you what, my dream job, and it's hard. I would love to coach Morris Knolls one day. I'll tell you that. That's my dream job, man. Whether it's the youth program or to eventually be like a high school guy there. You know, we haven't had a state champ, but that bothers me. You know, I put that on my back that I failed. There's got to be a kid in Rockaway Township or Denville that is good enough to be a New Jersey state champ somewhere eventually down the line. You know,
as long as you keep them away from the others.
Exactly. We can keep them home. But I think, you know, I don't think my face is that bright there anymore. People don't know who I am. My name's on the board, but man, I can't imagine that. I coached college wrestling for 4 years. I was an All-American. I've coached numerous All-Americans, numerous high school guys that were like state place winners and state champs here in Iowa. Like, I can't imagine if I wasn't in the room that we wouldn't be able to keep some of these kids around.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. I think because you would be in a similar situation almost like with Coach Laval at Hanover
Exactly.
Park. He had a lot of really good kids, and he had a great year, three championships, and then a medalist his 4th year. And those kids idolize them. And you see a lot of those kids, especially when they see your name up there and realize what you could do. I don't think that'd be a sure. Now I don't know if the current coach would be thrilled with each.
No, I would. Hey, I would coach behind Barchetto for now. I love Coach Barchetto. I respect him greatly. You know, I
He
think he's
actually
doing a
just
great
texted
job
me
with
and
the
said it
program.
was Dean. Dean is the wins leader.
So I wouldn't have any. I don't need to be a head coach. I would just love to be in the room and help out as much as I can. And I think Coach Barchetto's body of work himself is great enough to be a head coach, and a successful one. And he's kind of shown that. He's coached some very successful guys at Knolls and has done some good things. For me though, otherwise I'm going to do Ironman. I'm going to do some triathlon stuff. I'm not going to strap the shoes up and compete, but I'm going to continue to try to help with high school athletes and college athletes here in Iowa for now. And I want to get guys on the podium at NCAAs and keep kids accountable of what their goals are. That's my goal for now. For nursing wise, flight nursing or nurse practitioner eventually is something that I'm going to shoot for. But yeah, I think, like I said, my dream job would be to come back to Rockaway and make it happen. I don't know how my dad would feel about it. I think he would like it, but not like it. Just because he's like, oh, you really have time to do all of this stuff? Like, you're gonna get stressed out. But I think that's my goal. Like, I would love to be a part of it. You know, it'd be easy to go to New Jersey and coach like Bergen Catholic or Pope John. They're great programs. I mean, not knocking Knolls, but we got our work that we can continue to build. We're not up to that level until we're ranked #1 in the state. And I'm sure Coach Barchetto would say the same thing. There's going to be tons of work to be done. So I'd rather get in a program that needs the work than to get in there with 7 nationally ranked kids. And there's not much you have to do to help those guys. I mean, they can help themselves for the most part.
Well, you guys are in a different situation too than Bergen Catholic because you have restraints on where your kids can come from.
Exactly.
You know, it's harder. And before I get a bunch of people calling me and messaging me from Rockaway and Denver, I'm not stumping for him to take Coach Barchetto's job. I just asked the question. I'm not trying to push anybody out the door.
I don't want to be.
Issue with the previous Knolls coach. I'm not doing it again.
PSA, I don't want to be a head coach, so that's Barchetto's job for sure. I just hope he will open the door and let me be an assistant under him.
I think if you move back, I don't think you'd have a problem with that, but I don't want to speak for him. But yeah. Jan, thank you for taking the time. I know you got a busy schedule. You made some time for me this week. Thank you so much, and all the best of luck to you in the future. And please give my best to your mom and dad. I got to meet them a lot of times on Matt's side. 2 really nice people who I enjoyed talking to. So please give them my best as well. Yeah,
it was an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you having me. And yeah, hopefully we all get reunited one day back on the East Coast. It'd be great. So
I'll have a even bigger beard, and you'll be walking around telling the kids what to do.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jan.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jan, for the time. Like I said, thoroughly enjoyed talking to Jan. He's always been great and humble and easy to root for, and it's a great quote. Nice guy. And like I said, his parents, amazing people. And I wouldn't be shocked one day if he was in charge of some sort of program in Rockaway. It'd be a shame if he came back if they didn't take advantage of his mind and his mindset for what they're doing. I want to shift gears a little bit with what's going on. We're filming this, full disclosure. We're filming this Thursday in the afternoon, and everything that just happened in Washington. I want to give my opinions on stuff. And if people like it, they can like it. If they don't, they don't. It's my choice. Be mad, be happy. I'm not scared of cancel culture. It doesn't bother me. What happened yesterday in Washington was a joke. It should never have gotten that far. It shouldn't have been an issue. And I understand with everything going on, people are upset. As a military veteran, I've fought to defend the Constitution, not only against speech I like, which is irrelevant, it's the speech you hate. You're not out there fighting because so you can get everybody to agree with what you say. It's the most boring, horrible speech you can ever want. That's what you're fighting for because it's their right to say it, whether you like. Now, obviously, people can't say fire in a crowded movie theater, things like that, but just horrible stuff I've heard, people say that they're allowed to say. Now, I posted and I got blasted by a few people, not a lot, but a few, for saying that it was both parties' fault for yesterday, which it is. You cannot, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, you cannot for the last 4 years question a president constantly and say and do things and allude that just the election was rigged, or try to say something, and then when the next election comes around, it's not agree with. Well, you got to trust us. We wouldn't mess with you. No, that's not fair. And I understand there's full transparency. Now, a lot of the Republicans, most Republicans are good, most Democrats are good. There's a small little but highly vocal section that controls both parties as far as just the lunatic fringes. That's the problem right here. We're Americans. We come together as Americans, not I'm better than you type situation. Work together. Then yes, you need to. Everybody needs to research stuff, because the one thing I've seen a lot of people say is, well, they wanted to give us $600, now they want to give us $2,000. Why can't they do that? Well, one of the reasons they were debating the bill was, I don't know if anybody researched and saw that there was, I think it was 92 million going to Pakistan for gender studies. Like, why are we paying all this money out that we have to borrow from our kids, our grandkids, and our great grandkids that should be used for other stuff? Why is stuff being funded on the backs of what hardworking Americans do? No party cares about American people. Like, it's true. There's Democrats who are using what they need to do to get ahead, and Republicans. There's no one party truly for the people. And if you think that's true, I don't know what to tell you. I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I can already feel myself getting a little angry. And I already got the beard, and I'm looking at it, I want to pull on and go all crazy, but I'm not going to. But just everybody, you got to calm down. We used to laugh at countries that did this. Now we're the laughing side. Everybody needs to understand, first and foremost, we're Americans. Political party, anything is stupid. We're all Americans. Every American should have the right to live how they want, breathe how they want, and not have to worry about anything. Black, white, brown, whatever. I have a nephew who is mixed. I fear for what could happen to him in the future, and we talked about that. At the same point, I don't want him to be fearful of other things. So I understand both sides. I've had some people block me last night. Doesn't bother me because, like I said, I believe both parties are at fault for this, for what happened yesterday. Not just one and not just one person. Everybody had their hand in it. So I know I said I was getting on my soapbox, and then I kept going. So now I'm getting off my soapbox. Once again, thank you for Jared, the podcasting master back there. You can't see him, but I'm looking at his avatar right now, Gokin avatar. For Jared, I'm Donald J. Brower. I'll see you next time. Please, everybody, be safe.